Keep in touch with the Wolf Connection Podcast on our Instagram handle at the Wolf Connection Pod, or email us your questions, comments, and guest ideas to podcast@wolfconnection.org. Thank you for your support, and howls to you all. Welcome to the Wolf Connection Podcast. I'm your host, John Kaufman. So, all of you will have seen that Ronan Donovan is our first guest in the space for the first time. Thank you so much for joining us, for coming to the sanctuary, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thanks for hosting, John. It's been a wonderful visit and great to see what you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, just give me your takeaway so far. I mean, this is about you and your colleague, Jennifer Sherry. I mean, Jennifer's in the background just looking at us, making sure we're doing good. But I mean, how did everything go for you? What's the takeaway? How you feeling?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I was a little bit I'm a little cautious of the domestic wolf world, the sanctuary world, just from stories I've heard and places I've checked out in the past. But this has been very pleasant in all the ways. I love the public outreach programs that Wolf Connection does. I was a troubled youth when I was a middle schooler, had a couple felonies and a bunch of misdemeanors, and was just heading down a different track. And I think that, offering this sort of an experience to, there was a group of students we just saw that went through the whole academy program and kind of in like an expulsion probation situation from public school. And they're here to learn about wolves, but also learn a bit about themselves and feel empowered, get outside, be in this natural environment. Yeah, I'm amazed and impressed with everything that you all are doing. And everybody seems like, everyone I've talked to that works here, yourself included, everyone else is just, that seems very dedicated to what the goal is, and it's education outreach, as well as like just trying to make healthier humans too, it seems, as well as taking care of wolves.
Yeah, it's a whole encompassing. I mean, you're on the tour with me and Elena, and we went and saw the South End and the West End and everything like that. I mean, it really does encompass your life in a good way. Mm-hmm. I think it's something that we were finding because Jennifer was asking some really good questions to me as we were walking, and it's about, how do you get here? How do you get to a place like this? Mm-hmm. And it's just, I think the universe definitely has a way of like drawing you to certain places and doing certain things. And it just, it brings like people together in a place that like you want to be. Mm-hmm. And obviously connects, people like, you, me, Jennifer, people that are, that make the time to come out here. Obviously you're at a Nat Geo conference, you were doing different things, but to make time to come up here and spend some time at the wolves. I mean, what was like that for you? Just, I know we went to a few enclosures, you got to see Willow a little bit. What was that? I know you, like you said, you're a little leery. What's the feelings after you came out of that? And just,
Yeah, I mean, I'm a rural kid, rural guy. And so getting out of the city, being able to drive an hour and a half, whatever it was from, LA, and be able to come up into the mountains here and see snow, that in itself is wonderful and nourishing. And then, being able to spend time with these animals. We talked about it when we were out in the enclosures, but I really enjoy being around wolves that are, domestic wolves that are like a little curious, but then some of them that are standoffish and make you kind of earn their trust and their respect. But you can literally see them changing in just the 5 minutes that you spend in an enclosure, where one's kind of standoffish and pacing, and then 5 minutes later it's laying down next to you and lets you, touch it, as it essentially realizes that you're not a threat and kind of welcomes you in. It's I'm blown away how everything's going here, and facilities are great, and meeting all the wolves is really, really special. I really enjoyed it.
I mean, if you could correlate anything to your work when you were doing Kingdom of the White Wolf, because we were having that conversation where there were some of the pack members that were coming up to you, others that were standoffish. Does it bring you back to any of that stuff? I mean, obviously you were just there, I think you said over the summer, right? You were there a little while ago. Is it any different for you, or are you're in your element? You seem like you're in your element the whole time.
Yeah, I love being in those situations. The wolves that aren't scared of humans, which, there are a lot of the wolves here that aren't scared of humans at Wolf Connection. And then in the Arctic too, there's a lot that are curious about humans. So they come right up to you. It's the same behavior where you kneel down, they come up and they'll kind of like sniff your pants and like kind of like check you out and try to figure out what you're about. Quick movements make them kind of twitchy, and you got to kind of move in this different way. There were a couple situations early on in the first few enclosure visited where like I had to remind myself, made a fast movement and one of the wolves like stutter stepped and backed away. And that's very much the same experience that I've had with the wild wolves on Ellesmere. So it's fun to be back in that situation. And yeah, they're all individuals. You could see it here with the wolves, and definitely on Ellesmere. There's many of wolves that I've met there that are with packs that are curious and come right up, but then there'll be some of the animals that'll just be standoffish, and they'll kind of buff and chuff and, bark, howl sometimes when you come up and keep a bit of a distance. So it's interesting just to see how much that carries over into the like wolf hybrid dog world, how much of the personality comes into their behavior.
Yeah, it's when you're working here and we work in this world, in the wolf dog world, and you really explain to people, hey, that they have personalities just like humans. And I think it's making that human connection, I think, for a lot of people, and saying, oh, a lot of people see the mirror into themselves. And that's a lot of what we see with the youth and many of the adults that come here too. I think it's safe to say that we all have a mirror or a reflection, I think, in any wild animal, because it's not just, about wolves. I think other people too, they connect with different animals, but the wolf really seems to embody or elicit a different response. And it's interesting to see that. I mean, for you, was there any wolf that we went into, saw, any story that you heard that elicited a different response, or something that, that took you a little bit aback when you were here and that we walked by?
Yeah, I think maybe more so in just the general kind of metaphor that exists here, where a lot of these, or all of them, the wolves you have, are rescued in some form. And so these are animals that maybe the owner couldn't handle them anymore or were confiscated for some reason, but they're kind of cast out or meeting some sort of transitional point in their life. And then they're brought here and they're kind of, they're kept in these pens and kind of like they acclimatize a bit, and then they clearly seemingly calm down. And metaphor to me was just interesting to see like some of these troubled youth kids that are here that are kind of having a second chance and trying to figure out what the next phase of life is. And for them, maybe they see it, maybe they don't, or maybe it's subconscious, but being able to relate in some ways to the experience of the journey of some of these wolves that have got into conflict maybe some point in their life, or pushed up against society and the boundaries, literally and figuratively. And for a lot of youth, that's what gets them into trouble. But being able to come here, I think, maybe is an interesting access for both the wolves and some of these youth to be able to reevaluate and course correct and try something different.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were talking a little bit on the hike where we were saying that if we all had something like this when we were young, and these kids age, teenage, to be able to be outside, to be able to use our creativity, to be able to, like you say, be around in nature, just in the mountains. We still have snow on the caps, some of them in the back there, and allowing ourselves to have these relationships, to be able to build upon a relationship with nature. What is it like for you to see that in real time? I mean, it's because both you and Jennifer, work in this world, and you see how important nature and conservation and preservation is. What is it to see it, I guess, in action, and to know that, there's other places around that can do that, and obviously give you guys a respite from, some of the stuff you've been doing.
I think it's going to take as much exposure and work and effort and education as we all have in our capability in terms of the energy that we put out into the world. So seeing it done here in proximity to such a large urban center is really inspiring and feels really important to be able to. You'd mentioned that there's some of the programs where you actually bring some of the wolf dogs into like high school classrooms and situations where they become kind of these ambassador animals that for maybe some of the youth groups that can't come here, or schools that can't come here, they still get that exposure and kind of this taste of a, they're not wild, but like they embody a lot of wild things and wilderness just by their existence. So I think having this access for people that are really close to an urban center is really important. I live in Montana, and there's just over 1 million people in the whole state. And I don't even know what the population of LA is, 12 million. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's like 10 or 12 million. Yeah.
That is a massive amount of people who, just based on the situation and circumstance of life, they're quite disconnected from the day-to-day rhythm of the natural world. And so giving them kind of this immersive experience, people that do get to come here and visit, I mean, I imagine, and just from my own experience, it must be very profound for them. It is for me, even coming from Montana and having spent a lot of time with wild wolves. It's still a very unique and exciting experience to be able to enter into a space, kneel down, and have a 100-pound animal come up and be curious and, lock eyes and check you out. And you realize very quickly that it's not like a dangerous situation, that they're very much just curious and want to check you out and get some pets and scratches and enjoy just kind of being next to another being, it seems. So I think, having this be close to an urban center is so important, and really glad it's here.
I want to ask you too, because your high desert, the High Desert Museum, your work that you're doing with your photography, everything that was going on in Oregon, so profound and so impactful, I think, for a lot of people who were asking you questions. I saw some of the things you were running on Instagram, and it's really valuable to have an individual like yourself who's out there doing the work that you do to be able to answer these questions. What's it like for you to be able to take, I guess, this experience back with you and share it with anybody that you run into? What are the things that you're taking with you? We always ask this with, I guess, any of the groups, is like, what do you take with you when you leave this place, when you leave this experience, when you're with the wolves, whether it be from afar or up close? Is there anything that you're taking with you when you go back and you do your panels or anything like that you may share?
I've been thinking about recently just from my own experience, but the power of like place-based experiential learning, where you're actually physically going somewhere and having a transformational experience. So, let's say it's like a weekend retreat somewhere, or a workshop, or some sort of a class, or a vacation. I mean, it doesn't matter, but you're removed from the normal environment that your day-to-day life rhythm is made up of. And there's just an immense amount of power in that experience. And for me, that, a lot of that happens when I go to the Arctic, where it's a very different landscape, very different experience. But physically going somewhere and being out of your comfort zone and experiencing new sights and smells and sounds and petting wolves, it's hard to think of like a better recipe in a lot of ways for like having some of these transformational experiences. I've worked a lot in the space of education, where it's often passive. I put out articles and give talks, or do panel discussion, and it's very passive in the sense that like some people choose to read something or not, or they choose to come to a panel or not, and it's an hour and a half of an experience, let's say, even if it is in person, but then it's over. Versus people that, the student group that's taking these online courses and learning about wolves, and then they get to come here and have their graduation ceremony from that whole course here amongst wolves. And we just heard the whole bunch of wolves start howling kind of in the midst of their graduation ceremony, which must have been special and memorable for them. I know that must be extremely powerful for a lot of people that go through this process of coming here, experiencing it, different landscape, different place, and being around these animals. So I think that's something that I'll take away, is just the power of the experience.
That's awesome. I mean, it was so great that both of you were able to spend time. And I think that's why we wanted to give you guys, space and time, because that's always what I think a lot of us don't get just in anything. We're always rushing from one place to the other, myself included. I do this a lot. And I try to, what this place does for me at least, is allows me to slow down a little bit, to a degree.
Yeah.
I think we all do the best we can, but I think allowing that space and allowing the energy to just sort of flow through and be like, hey, let's settle, let's chill out, and we'll hang out and go with the wolves. That to me is such a great thing. I'm glad that you're taking that and that you're going to take that with you. I do want to ask you, because I correct me if this is not public knowledge, but I believe your exhibit is coming to LA.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
So the exhibit just closed in Bend, Oregon.
Okay.
It is going to Eugene, Oregon next. We have some programming on April 5th and 6th at the Natural History Museum in Eugene. The panel discussion that we had in Bend is going to go on the road. We're taking it to Eugene again. So we'll have some great wolf experts on that. And then it goes to Portland for the, I think, Oregon Historical Society, it's called. And then in September, it's going to come to the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County, I think is the full name. But Natural History Museum here in Los Angeles. And it'll be up for 9 months starting in September. And we're planning on doing a bunch of programming during the Wolf Week, which I think is the last week of October.
Yeah, I believe so.
This year. So yeah, there should be tons of opportunity, people in LA to visit, see the Wolves exhibit, and stay tuned for some programming events, probably some panel discussions. I'll do some public talks, some youth outreach programs. So yeah, we'll definitely be talking more about that.
Oh, I can't wait for that. I mean, I know people who are watching, I'm sure, well, are you going to, I mean, it's going to be officially announced now, but I mean, what's it like putting that together? I think we asked this prior when we had you on the first time. I mean, what does that get your juices flowing, just putting all that stuff together and laying it out and seeing how the space, can interact with everybody?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what I feel like the exhibit is now is this kind of form of integration where you get to have this draw, which is a series of images and text and maps and videos that is the exhibit, but then you get to build and tinker around it with different experiences for people to be able to come in person and learn more and have more of an interaction related to the human wolf experience. And the organization that Jenny works for is the one that is bringing it to Los Angeles. And so partnering with the museum and able to host it here, which is exciting and great and a new way to do it. But yeah, it'll be exciting to have it be in a big metropolis. It's been in very small kind of like corners of the West, Jackson, Bend, Eugene, and Portland. Right. Portland's not that small, but yeah, LA is going to be a really exciting venue.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a lot of foot traffic. I know, again, I think this vision and this push, I think, for conservation for wildlife, I really think there's a need for it. And it's, you guys are at the forefront of that, of, spreading these messages, keeping people informed, and obviously having a place like this that's going to be at the Natural History Museum. This is going to be something that people, I have no doubt, are going to want to flock to, that they're going to want to see, that they're going to look at. And just to bring your work and Jennifer for getting it into a huge space like that. I mean, that's huge. And like you said, a huge metropolis that's the way to go.
It's exciting. Yeah. Jenny and I have meetings there tomorrow with the museum staff to talk more about it.
I mean, again, I can't thank you enough for just being open to, like I said, breaking in the space to, coming in here and really just both of you taking the time to, chill out, be in the mountains with our pack, meeting the humans that work here at Wolf Connection and just, like I said, getting to see a program graduate and see really the full breadth of what we do at this organization and just sharing your talents. And like I said, can't wait for the exhibit to be here in LA shortly. I mean, it's February, but September will be here soon enough.
Yeah,
so
it's just coming right up.
Yeah. I mean, it's just great. I'm really thrilled that you're here and, you guys got to experience the whole thing.
No, appreciate it, John. And same to you. I mean, I think that we're all working towards a similar goal of education and reconnecting people with wild things inside themselves as well as the landscape. And I think that the idea of the Wolf Connection and bringing people together and spanning a lot of different organizations and different regions, I think is really valuable and necessary. I really enjoy that you bring in different voices from international wolf-human relationships, which is great to hear and to know and learn from. So yeah, I'm grateful for the work that you guys are doing. And I think that working together and everybody kind of moving towards a collective end is really the way we're going to move forward.
I love it. That's the way to end it. Ronan Donovan, thank you, man.
Hey,
appreciate it, bud. Nice. Appreciate it so much. How's everybody out there, and more videos to come. Looking for more information about Wolf Connection or the podcast? Please visit our website at wolfconnection.org, where you can donate, sponsor a wolf, or become a volunteer.